I sat quietly in the back of Dad's mahogany-paneled office as the family gathered for the will reading. My sister Victoria adjusted her Chanel suit while my brother James checked his Rolex, gifts from Dad's last business trip. "Can we get this started?" Victoria demanded. "Some of us have corporations to run." James smirked. "Unlike some people who just play with computers all day. If they only knew that my playing with computers had built Sterling Tech into a $50 billion tech empire. But Dad had insisted I keep my success quiet, part of our plan." The reading of Harrison Industrial's CEO Robert Harrison, the family lawyer, began. Mom dabbed her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. Robert always knew how to handle the business properly. Unlike Sarah, Victoria stage whispered. "Remember when she suggested we go digital? What a joke." I checked my phone as another acquisition alert came through. Sterling Tech had just purchased 3 more tech companies, adding to our control of the industry. "To my beloved wife Margaret," the lawyer read, "buy personal estate and shares in the family home." Mom nodded approvingly. Traditional just as she liked it. "To my daughter Victoria, 30% of Harrison Industrial and the position of CEO." Victoria straightened triumphantly. Finally, someone competent in charge. "To my son James, 30% of Harrison Industrial and the position of CFO." James grinned. The dynamic duo takes control. The lawyer paused, looking at me. "And to my daughter Sarah, my collection of technical manuals and 0 shares in the company." Victoria couldn't contain her glee. "0. Just like your contribution to this family." "There must be some mistake," Mom frowned. "Even the maids got something." I remained silent, watching the scene unfold. Dad and I had planned this moment carefully over the past 5 years. "Well," James declared, "now that's settled, let's discuss the future of Harrison Industrial. Sarah, you can see yourself out." "Actually," a new voice spoke from the doorway, "there's one more document to be read." My lawyer, Ms. Chin, entered with a leather portfolio. Victoria rolled her eyes. "We're done here. Security can show you both out." "I represent Sterling Technologies," Ms. Chin continued calmly. "And we have some rather interesting information about Harrison Industrial's ownership structure." The room went silent. Even Mom stopped dabbing her eyes. "Sterling Tech." James frowned. "The tech giant that's been buying up everything?" Victoria waved dismissively. "What does that have to do with us?" Miss Chin smiled, opening her portfolio. "Everything, actually. Would you like to meet Sterling's CEO?" "What do you mean, everything?" Victoria demanded. "Let me handle this," James interrupted, putting on his CFO voice. "Sterling Tech is just another corporation we can deal with later. Right now this is a family matter." I checked another notification on my phone. Sterling had just completed acquisition of their major suppliers. Dad's final chess piece moved exactly as planned. "Speaking of family matters," Victoria turned to me with a sneer, "shouldn't you be leaving? 0 shares means 0 input." Mom nodded in agreement. "Really, Sarah, know your place. The technical manuals are in the basement, next to the old computers you love so much." "Actually," Miss Chin interjected, "those old computers are now worth quite a lot. Especially the ones used to build Sterling's first prototype." James laughed sharply. "What are you talking about? Sarah couldn't build a paper airplane, let alone tech worth anything. If they only knew those worthless prototypes had revolutionized quantum computing." Dad had watched proudly as I built Sterling from that basement, all while letting my siblings believe I was just playing games. "The future of Harrison Industrial is clear," Victoria declared. "James and I will modernize everything. No more outdated tech suggestions from the family failure." My phone buzzed again. Perfect timing. The final transfers were complete. "About that modernization," Ms. Chin smiled. "You might want to check who owns your technology suppliers first." Victoria's face reddened. "Our suppliers are under strict contract with Sterling Technologies," I finally spoke, watching their expressions. "Along with your manufacturing plants, distribution networks, and cloud infrastructure." "Impossible," James scoffed, but he was already pulling out his phone to check. The lawyer cleared his throat. "There is one more document. A letter from Robert Harrison to be read after the will. More instructions about keeping Sarah away from the business?" Victoria smirked. "Actually," The lawyer adjusted his glasses. It's about Sterling Technologies' ownership of Harrison Industrial's parent company. The room went silent. Even the traffic outside seemed to pause. Parent company? Mom whispered. What parent company? I stood slowly, smoothing my simple blazer. Would you like me to explain, or should my lawyer do the honors? This is ridiculous, James declared, but his voice trembled slightly. We control Harrison Industrial now. 60% combined ownership. Check your phones, Miss Chen suggested. The ownership structure was just updated. Victoria's gasp echoed through the office as she saw the notification. James's face went pale. But that's not possible, Mom stammered. I smiled, thinking of all the late nights Dad and I had spent planning this moment. Actually, it's not only possible. It's done. The stage was set. Time for the real show to begin. What do you mean it's done? Victoria demanded, her perfectly manicured hands shaking as she gripped her phone. Sterling Technologies, Ms. Chen announced, through various subsidiaries owns Global Dynamics Corporation, which, as of this morning, is the parent company of Harrison Industrial. That's impossible, James sputtered. We would have known. Would you? I asked quietly. You were too busy mocking my computer games to notice I was building an empire. Mom's face had gone pale. But Sterling Technologies is worth $52 billion as of this morning, Ms. Chen confirmed, making its CEO one of the youngest tech billionaires in history. Victoria's laugh held a note of hysteria. This is absurd. Sarah can barely handle a spreadsheet. Really? I pulled out my tablet, displaying Sterling's holdings. Would you like to see the spreadsheets I used to acquire your suppliers? Or perhaps the algorithms that now control your manufacturing plants? James jumped up. I'll call our lawyers. Already here, Ms. Chen smiled. Along with documentation of every acquisition, signed and approved by your late father. Dad. Mom whispered. Robert knew about this? I nodded. Who do you think helped me plan it? All those nights you thought he was wasting time in the basement with me? He was teaching me everything about business, I continued. While you two were busy fighting over corner offices, Dad and I were building something bigger. Victoria's face contorted. You're lying. Daddy would never. Read the letter. I cut her off. The one he left for after the will. The lawyer cleared his throat and began reading. To my dear family. While you were measuring success in corner offices and luxury cars, Sarah was measuring it in patents and innovations. She didn't need shares in Harrison Industrial. She built something far greater. I've watched my youngest daughter turn a basement full of worthless computers into a tech empire. Now it's time for all of you to see what I've seen all along. Sarah isn't just my daughter. She's the most brilliant business mind I've ever known. And now she's your boss. The silence was deafening. James had collapsed back into his chair. Victoria's mascara was starting to run. You mean? Mom's voice trembled. All those times we sent you to the basement. I was running board meetings for Sterling, I finished. Those technical manuals Dad left me? They're worth more than Harrison Industrial's entire market cap. Miss Chen opened another folder. The official transfer of power takes effect immediately. Ms. Harrison is now CEO of both Sterling Technologies and Harrison Industrial. But our shares? Victoria protested. We own 60%. Of a subsidiary, I corrected. Sterling owns 70% of your parent company. Basic corporate structure. Something you'd know if you'd ever actually read those reports you dismissed. James's phone buzzed. His face went ashen as he read the message. The board. They've already approved the restructuring. Of course they did, I smiled. They work for me now. Well, technically they always did. You just didn't know it. Victoria grabbed the lawyer's copy of Dad's letter, her hands shaking. This has to be a forgery. Like the forged patents you said I could never create? I pulled up Sterling's patent portfolio on the screen. Or the fake technology you said would never work? James was frantically scrolling through his phone. Our stock. It's frozen. Pending the official merger announcement, Ms. Chen confirmed. Sterling Technologies is absorbing Harrison Industrial completely. But the company has been in our family for generations. Mom wailed. And it still is, I replied calmly. Just under different management. My management. Victoria's face twisted with rage. You planned this all along. You and Daddy. We're building the future while you were busy buying sports cars with company money, I finished. How is that Lamborghini, by the way? The one you expense as a business necessity? James stood up again, straightening his tie. Now listen here, little sister. No, you listen, I cut him off. Your security clearances have already been revoked. Your executive parking spaces reassigned. Your corner offices? I'm turning them into a coding lab. Mom clutched her pearls. But what about the charity board? My social standing. Should have thought about that before you told everyone your youngest daughter was playing with toys in the basement. I smiled. Though I'm sure they'll be very interested in meeting the actual CEO of Sterling Technologies. Miss Chin opened another folder. Your new employment contracts, should you wish to remain with the company. Employment contracts? Victoria screeched. We're owners. We're owners, I corrected. Now you're potential employees. If you qualify. James snatched the contract, then went pale. This is an entry-level position. In the IT department, I nodded. Since you both love telling me how easy computer work is. The office doors opened as Sterling's executive team filed in, each carrying tablets with the Sterling logo. Your office needs to be cleared by 5, my head of operations informed Victoria. The development team needs the space. Victoria's perfect composure finally cracked. You can't do this to us. Actually, I stood, smoothing my blazer. I already have. But don't worry. Dad left you those technical manuals too. You might want to start reading. The next morning I sat in my new office. Dad's old space completely transformed with Sterling's cutting-edge tech. Multiple screens displayed global operations while my siblings' desperate messages filled my phone. Victoria had sent 32 emails about family loyalty. James's secretary called 15 times about urgent financial matters. Mom's texts alternated between guilt trips and social climbing attempts. They're in the lobby, my assistant announced. All 3 of them. Been waiting 2 hours. The security feed showed a very different family. Gone was Victoria's smug superiority, James's arrogant stance. Mom's social queen demeanor had crumbled. They looked like what they now were, unemployed former executives begging for a meeting. Let them wait another hour, I said, approving a billion-dollar acquisition. Silicon Valley doesn't pause for family drama. When security finally escorted them up, their shock at the office transformation was visible. Gone were the old money trappings, replaced by holographic displays and quantum processors. The basement toys they'd mocked now powered a global empire. Sarah, Mom started, her voice trembling. Darling, about what we said. The basement comments? The constant mockery? Do be specific. We have quite a history to cover. James stepped forward. About my position. Your former position, I corrected. How's the IT training manual coming along? Chapter 1 can be quite challenging for beginners. Victoria's face flushed. This is ridiculous. I have an MBA from Harvard. Yes, you mentioned it daily. I cut her off. Funny how that MBA didn't teach you to spot a tech revolution happening in your own basement. My phone lit up with another acquisition alert. I smiled at the notification. That was the NASDAQ, I announced. Harrison Industrial has officially been delisted. Sterling Technologies is now your only option for employment. Mom sank into a chair. The country club board has been informed of the change in management, I finished. Though they're more interested in meeting the real CEO of Sterling than hearing about your charity galas. James tried his CFO voice. The shareholders are thrilled, I cut him off. Stocks up 40% on the merger news. Turns out those worthless computers were worth quite a lot. Victoria's perfectly maintained facade finally cracked. What do you want from us? Want? I looked up from my screens. I have everything I want. The company, the patents, and Dad's faith in me proven right. We're still family, Mom pleaded. Family. I laughed softly. Was it family when you banished me to the basement? When you told the board I was an embarrassment? When you spent years treating me like a failure? My assistant entered with more files. The Silicon Valley expansion is ready for your review. And the tech blogs are loving the story. Basement genius outsmarts siblings. Perfect timing, I smiled. Send them the photos of my first server farm. The one Victoria called a waste of electricity. James stepped forward desperately. Sarah, please. Please what? Give you the positions you never earned? The respect you never showed? Dad knew what he was doing when he picked me. Victoria's tears threatened her perfect makeup. We didn't know. That's the point, I cut her off. You never bothered to know. Too busy counting your bonuses to notice I was building an empire right under your feet. I stood, walking to Dad's old photo wall, now displaying Sterling's global operations. You know what the funny part is? I offered to teach you. All those times I tried to explain the technology, the potential. You just laughed and went back to your corner offices. We can learn, Mom offered weakly. Of course you can. Starting with basic coding, just like every other entry-level employee. I turned back to my screens. If you qualify for the positions. Victoria's composure broke completely. You're enjoying this. Almost as much as you enjoyed mocking my computer games, I agreed. How does it feel to be on the other side? My assistant appeared again. Your keynote speech at the tech summit is in an hour. And the Forbes interview about America's youngest tech CEO is confirmed. Thank you, I nodded. Show them out. Unless they're ready to fill out those entry-level applications. As security led them to the door, Mom turned back. We were wrong about you. No, I said quietly. You were wrong about everything. Technology, business, success. None of it works the way you thought. But don't worry, you'll have plenty of time to learn. Starting from the bottom. The door closed on their shocked faces. Through my windows I could see their reserved parking spots being reassigned, names already replaced. My phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. Can we talk about this? I smiled, watching my empire's operations flowing across the screens. Success wasn't just about proving them wrong. It was about building something so massive they couldn't ignore it anymore. And now, every time they read about Sterling Technologies, they'd remember the sister they banished to a basement that became a launching pad.